Nombre
It's
y
cold
medio, por
outside.
favor.
Alex Medela, Panamá, Centroamérica. Amigos, me encuentro con una persona que está encargada de llevarnos la historia de Star Wars a la pantalla grande y de Rogue One. Estoy hablando del director... I was going to say your name was Rogue.
You can.
Amigos, estamos aquí con el director de la película Rogue One, una historia de Star Wars, el señor Gareth Edwards. Hola, Gareth. How are you?
Hola. Good, thank you. And you?
You just told me something very interesting, that you've been to Panama.
Yeah, I went to Panama. My background before I got into filmmaking was doing visual effects, and I went to Panama with the BBC. There was a documentary about the building of the Panama Canal, and it was with the Discovery Channel, and I had to recreate the process in which, which was very hard, obviously, the process of how they did the Panama Canal. And I never realized it's probably one of the greatest achievements, in humankind in terms of like the sheer scale of it. It's insane what they did back then. It was crazy.
Yeah, and we just inaugurated this year the second set of locks, so we're growing.
Wow.
You need to go back.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
But we're talking about Rogue One. You are a very diehard fan of Episode 4, which was the original one.
Yeah.
And is it true that you have watched it almost like 2,200 times?
I don't know. But yeah, like every day as a kid, yeah. And I don't know it felt like for years, but I don't know what it really was, but probably hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
But what was so interesting about the Rogue One and the story, not Rogue One, the Star Wars story that drew you and got you there like a big fan?
I think that, we all grow up as kids and we want to hear stories, and the stories we want to hear are about how to succeed, how to get the girl and kill the bad guy and save the world. And I think Star Wars did it better than any other film had ever done it. And it was also it had science fiction in there, and robots, but also felt historical. It felt like something from the past, like it's kind of biblical. Yeah. And so I think for maybe a generation that were growing up, maybe not going to church and hearing like religious stories as much, it fed the appetite for like the story of someone coming to save us and good versus evil. It just was perfect as a child.
Star Wars is a very cherished franchise. How is to come into a new movie, have writers and having a new story that's gonna be like scrutinized by all people and all the fans? How was the process? And you being a fan of the stories?
I think we scrutinized ourselves a lot. We were all very big fans.
Yeah.
Everyone involved loved Star Wars, and so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And there were things we would go like, can we do that? We can't do that. Can we do that? And we would kill ourselves over. And what we kept trying to remind ourselves, a lot of the people at Lucasfilm had worked with George Lucas a lot in the past, and they're like, look, George takes risks, you know what I mean? And the first thing he always would do is try and go against what you're expecting. And so it's kind of a license to be different. And especially this is not part of the saga, this is its own film.
Yeah.
The studio gave us permission, in fact encouraged us to be different. And so hopefully what you're going to get is something that feels like Star Wars, but is not what you're expecting.
Yeah, it's something brand new. Did George Lucas have anything to see or to do with the movie, or did you just call him, ask something, or his involvement was just, let me see when it's done?
Yeah, I mean, he's retired now, and so he didn't. What happened is he was in London once, and we were in pre-production, and suddenly got a phone call saying George is coming to visit, and it's like, oh my God, and quick tidy, and he came in and we showed him around, and I was really nervous because I thought, if he looks at something and says, I don't like that, I'll have to take it out of the film. I can't live with the fact that it would be in the movie if he didn't like it. He's kind of God. And thankfully he went round everything and was really supportive and very generous. And he did point at a helmet at one point that was not in the film, and he said, oh, that's nice. And we all looked at each other like, okay, that's got to go in.
Yeah.
And so the next day we put it on the guys driving the tank in this one scene, to make sure George is what George says is what happens.
Yeah. Someone says that this is a very bellic movie, a lot of action, a lot of war. Is that what we're going to get? What was the main story of this Rogue One?
The central story is really the threat of the Death Star. You know, the film is about the stealing of the plans, but for me, you know, you have spaceships and explosions and robots, it's all great, but it means nothing unless you are emotionally connected to things. And so we were trying to find what is the way to do this that feels like Star Wars, and suddenly one day we hit on the idea that if there was a character that was responsible or kind of part of the reason the Death Star existed, and the rebellion try to find their child to help them get this guy, then it would have a father-child central relationship that, you know, you have with Luke and Vader, and it started to feel like, okay, this feels like Star Wars now, and so really we go into the film. The journey of the film is the story of Jyn, played by Felicity, who goes with this band of rebels and is trying to find her father because there's a connection to the Death Star. And I can't say too much because it spoils it, but it doesn't go according to plan.
One of the biggest challenges I think you may have was bringing Darth Vader back to the big screen.
Yeah.
How was that process? What went through your mind before seeing him on stage? And Darth Vader is movie history.
He is probably the most iconic character in the history of cinema, I reckon.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be hard to find another. And yeah, so it was a big deal, and we did a lot of homework and we did a lot of camera tests. Greg, who is the director of photography, he would practice lighting Darth Vader, and before we even began, there was before we had any costumes or anything, we needed to start trying to practice like shooting him. Mm-hmm. And so we contacted the biggest Darth Vader fan in the world, who had built a suit, and it was the best, most closest match to the original suit. And we said, would you like to come to Pinewood? We can't tell you what it's about, but we just want to we lied to him. Yeah. And then when he came, he said, look, we've got Darth Vader in the film, and would you mind just wearing this thing and let us film you for a bit? And he was really excited, but he signed his life away, and he couldn't even tell his wife. I saw him a lot later, and I spoke to him, and he said he hadn't told her. No. I was like, really? And he's like, no. And so he never told anybody. And the weird thing about it is he had a voice box, so that when he flicked it on, it would go. And so when I'd come on set and we just started trying to experiment with this, you'd hear this noise as you were walking up. You come around a corner and there was Darth Vader, and you just feel like you become a 4-year-old. Yeah. You become like, I defy anybody to see that person and not freak out. Yeah, of course. It's a dream come true. Did you have any concerns before embarking on this big movie? And now that it's done, are you happy? You had to do some reshoots after you were done. Were they too hard, or what was missing? I did a film like in Mexico where we had very little money, and we shot for about 6 weeks. And then after I edited, we came back and did a pickup shoot for another 10 days and did the same thing on the film before. And we'll always want to make films where it's like sculpting clay. You start doing things, I'm missing this, or maybe try this, and you want to get some more clay and put it in. Yeah. And Star Wars is no different. The only difference is that the whole world's watching, and so everyone's, it's under a magnifying glass, a lot of this stuff. But the film didn't really change. It was more like trying to compress the film, because we had a lot going on, and it was, a long initial cut. And when you compress things, it's like trying to turn a 3-minute scene into a 1-minute scene without losing the things you need. And that involves, rewriting and getting it just right. And so it was just refinements. It wasn't like reinvention. And I'm really proud of how the film turned out. So. Yeah, it shows, and it shows on the screen. Oh no, cheers. Thank you very much, Gareth. Thanks a lot. Welcome to Panama anytime. Yes, I'll come back. Thank you. Thanks a lot.